Good morning, dear students, and welcome back to your English class. Today I am going to discuss about our writing skills, and I am going to deal with an important segment of writing skills, that is story. My dear students, is very interesting when we are listening to it or when we are reading to it, and also at times when we are narrating it. But it becomes difficult when we sit to pen it down or to write it, as we face during the exam. So today I am going to tell you how to develop a story. What is a story, students? Story is an imaginative narration of an event or character. The story is generally developed to convey a message, a moral, or at times just for entertainment. A story can be of different kinds. It can be a myth, a fable, a mystery, adventurous, it can be horror, a fairy tale, or many more kinds. We generally deal with fables. Fables are the stories which have a moral in the end. Now, let us deal with its components. Different components of a story are theme, plot, setting, characters, and presentation. A theme, students, is the central idea on which the story revolves. It has to be well defined, it has to be pre-thought of, it has to be well developed, and it should be so interesting that it engrosses the reader. Now next comes the plot. A plot is the sequence in the story, how one event takes place after the another. The sequence should be so smooth that it overlaps. There should not be a break in between. They should be merging as if one thing is coming out or flowing automatically out of the first event. A plot, the whole idea of the story, we have to think beforehand. A plot has a beginning where we introduce our characters, where we introduce different situations in the story. Then we mix certain events to that and try to develop some kind of events one by one that makes it interesting and makes it a whole. A plot, students, it's to be developed in a very interesting way. Like, it begins at this level where we are introducing the characters or the event we want to talk about. Then slowly we develop certain more events, we merge into it to make the interest grow into the reader. Then comes the high point where the curiosity becomes more. The curiosity of the person is rising. And then we slowly bring it down, and in the end we complete it with whatever we are trying to convey through that story. Next, my dear students, comes the setting of the story. The setting of the story indicates to the surroundings, to the place where the story is taking place or the events are actually happening. That also conveys the mood of the story. Then comes the important part, the characters. The characters are the people around whom we develop the story. They can be protagonist, antagonist, showing the conflict, or there can be major characters or small characters. Each character has its own importance in that part of the story. Each character has an important role to play in the development of an interesting story. Now students, let us come to the presentation. Presentation is how we present the plot. Now there can be two ways. First is that I am the part of the story and I take it as a first person presentation, or I become an outsider to the story and view the plot or the setting or the development of the story as an outsider, as a third person view. So I can have two views. One is first person view where I am experiencing everything. And second is I give a third person view where I am viewing whatever is happening from outside. And I become omnipresent. Omnipresent means I am present everywhere wherever the story or the part of the story is taking place. And I can develop a story. If I have to convey a message, then there has to be a conflict, so that in the end I reach to a point where I can reconcile both the points or the conflict to give out a positive message to the society. A conflict can be external or it can be internal. How? Now, external conflict is something as if somebody is fighting with me, or we have an argument, or we have a difference of opinion. That is the external conflict. And the internal conflict, students, is that I have conflict with my own thoughts. What is right and what is wrong? I want to go with right, or I want to do something which is easy. So that moral conflict going on within me. These two kinds of conflict lead us to a moral value where I end up choosing the right and conveying a positive message to the society. So this is the way all these 5 chief components are dealt with. As I already said, that there is a series of events happening when we are developing a story. But the events should happen in such a flow that they seem to be coming out of the first one. The next event that is followed by the first one, the series should be such that it is naturally following. And there should not be any break. You can have many twists in the stories to make it more interesting or to make the reader engrossed in that. So that it is he or she is looking for what is going to happen next. That will make it more interesting. Also, you can insert certain dialogues in that. You see, students, we have to be grammatically correct while writing the story. And story, as I said, is a narration of the events. And most of the time, the narration is of the events that have already taken place. So when I talk of events that have already taken place, then I use past tense. But as and when I am inserting few dialogues in that to make it lively, that time I have to use inverted commas and the dialogues, so those dialogues can be in present tense also. Whenever we begin a story, we need to give it a title. A title can be such that it can be of the main character of the story, or the main event of the story, or something that gives a general idea of the story. But it should be such that it appeals to the reader and the reader wants to read the story. I hope, children, now it is somewhat clear to you how to develop a story. But what happens is that in your exam, you have very limited time and you have to do a lot in that. So let me discuss a few steps with you through which you can develop the story fast. There are two ways in which a story can be given to you. One is some outline is given, some words, then dash, then some words, then dash. That is a framework is given where you have to add your own imagination and develop the story. And the second is just the opening sentence is given and then you can continue with that. So first let us discuss when you are given an outline. When you are given with an outline, the things become very easy. Why? The plot is given to you. The theme becomes clear from that outline. So what we have to do is, we have to read the outline at least twice. After reading it carefully, we should sit down with closed eyes just for a few seconds or a minute and think over that what all is going on in that outline, whatever is given. And children, here what we have to keep in mind is that the outline is given most of the time in present tense, but the story is to be developed in past tense. So you close your eyes, think of the setting. Think of the setting where the plot is revolving around. First thing what we write is the title of the story. Then we begin with the first paragraph where we can do the introduction of the characters. Like supposingly I say, once upon a time in ancient India there lived a king. So here I have introduced the era of my story. And I have introduced one character of mine, that is the king. Now the reader knows from the very first line that the story is going to revolve around that king. So your first paragraph, you can do this, the introduction of the characters. Then from the next paragraph, your actual presentation of the plot begins. In the second paragraph, where your actual presentation begins or the development of the plot begins, you can add certain dialogues there to make it more lively. Supposingly, if you remember that Akbar Birbal story, the different dialogues of Akbar are given, then Birbal are given, which gives a good impact to the story, which makes it more interesting. The reader wants to read it. The reader actually wants to go and see what is actually going to happen next. So the same way, we have to arouse the interest of the reader so that He wants to read my story, whatever I have written. After developing, then comes your last paragraph. Now children, in the last paragraph, if you're writing a mystery or a horror or even a general story, you can add such twists that actually changes the whole scenario. And actually the reader has that satisfaction that yes, I have read a very good story. After we have concluded our story, the most important thing, the moral. We have to write a moral below. After the last paragraph, we write the moral or the message that we want to convey through our story. And children, after we have completed the whole story, I would suggest that you must reread what you have written and reread it twice. Because when we are writing in a flow, we feel that we have conveyed everything and we have written all the points. But at times it happens that we have missed out something or we have not spelled certain words correctly. So there what we have to do is we have to do those corrections. So whenever you are doing a writing skill, rereading your paper or rereading your question or rereading your story is very, very essential. Now let us come to the second way. Second way is when you are given just a starting line and you have to develop a story. There, children, I believe that there your imagination can fly to any limit because you are not limited by an outline. You are free to think whatever you want. You can go to any level. But same time, we have to be very, very careful that our imagination doesn't go wide. It doesn't lead the track. You have to think for some time regarding the plot you want to develop, regarding how you will present your message, present your theme. So you have to just when you get that story, think for 2 minutes how you want to develop. Supposingly I give you a opening sentence that I was sitting alone in the room and there was a knock at the door. Now this knock at the door can lead to anything. I can see that your imagination has already started. It can be anyone at the door. And so writing 100 or 150 words that you can do. When we are writing a story from an outline, children, one request I would like to make is that it is not the filling the blanks given to you. These are the hints. You don't have to miss out any of the hints given. These are the hints given to you on which you have to write the story. If you are developing a story from the beginning sentence and you follow the steps of introduction, then middle part you develop the theme, develop the plot, and in the last paragraph you give the conclusion and then the moral. It won't be difficult to finish it in 100 or 120 words. So students, follow these instructions and try to develop a story on your own. Enjoy writing and enjoy your day. Thank you.